you so much, Sue. And I've been messaging a few of you on the side because I can see some familiar faces, which I absolutely love. However, imposter syndrome, nerves, slightly, escalated, but we're going to go through it anyway. So welcome everybody. It's really lovely to see you. And like Sue said, I hope you are managing to grab lunch and have a break and do all of those sorts of things during this session. But the critical thing today is going to be embodying the confidence as soon as we start. I am going to get you to put stuff in chat. We're going to have a breakout session so you actually get to speak to people. And what I want you to start with from the second this session starts is, okay, what does it look like for me to be that little bit more confident today than maybe I would do normally? Safe space. Hopefully one of the things you're going to take away from today is that you really are not alone with this. So as Sue said, I work in and outside of sport. My fundamental purpose is actually to build human connection as a catalyst for change. An awful lot of people can't do this stuff on their own. And so just having some sort of accountability with someone or talking to someone like me or just having some self-reflection time really, really helps us uncover just our ability to be at our best. So I work with an awful lot of people in sport, but I also work in other male-dominated industries, and I predominantly work with women. So I work in insurance and banking. I've done work for the Church of England, would you believe, and the Military of Defence, but all very different, all exactly the same challenges. So today is about confidence, and what I want to really try and get across today is to actually give you some hints and tips and things to think about so that when this ends, you actually can go away and do some stuff. So we'll explore what confidence is. We'll explore you and your relationship with confidence and what our barriers might be. But the main thing is get some sort of commitment from you to go and practice something to help in this area. Please feel free to shout with questions as we go through down the chat if there's anything that needs explaining, or if you want me to elaborate on something, just say. I have a tendency to pack a lot in for 90 minutes, and my main thing is also that you get to talk. So I will go through stuff quite quickly, but always happy to stay around afterwards for questions. So first of all, lovely Kate is going to give us a poll. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling about confidence? 1 is, no, not confident at all. 10 is, yeah, nailing it every day and confident about it. So right now, just give me what are you thinking about how confident you feel? It's amazing. Okay, just a couple more to vote. Brilliant. Kate, are we sharing? Can we share the result? Yeah, perfect. So look at that. As low as a 2, as high as an 8, but really, as expected, most around the middle. 5, 6, 7. There's that real sort of feeling of not quite, not low, but predominantly in the middle. I love the 5 that have said they're an 8. Good for you. Keep it going. And all of this is about what will make it the next number for me. So if it's a 5, what might make it a 6? If it's an 8, what might make it a 9? This is a point in time as well. Remember that today you might feel very different to how you do tomorrow. So it is definitely a moving feast. But one of the things about, there's thousands of studies out there, more so daily, and slightly disappointing that things aren't moving that much. But there is this gap between male and female confidence in the workplace. And what it's really showing is actually confidence is as important as competence. It's not just how good you are at something, it's the confidence in doing it. But like I want to take away, let me just, Kate, I've got the poll in the middle of my screen. Is it? I can just carry on. Is it me or is it?
I've closed it, Chloe, so you might need to do it from your screen.
I will carry on. The thing to remember is that this isn't an inherent flaw. I think an awful lot of people especially women, think that they are just not confident. That's fact. I can never be, and it's not going to happen. But listen, it's not an inherent flaw, and it's not what defines you. The critical thing to take away from today is it needs practice. So to work out where I need to improve my confidence, I then got to work out how to do it, but I then need to practice it. So confidence isn't going to magically land in your lap tomorrow morning, but it will if you put some attention to it. And so, like I say, today we're going to be about really breaking down what the elements are of confidence and what it means to you. You'll hear all sorts of words: self-confidence, self-belief. You'll also hear about self-promotion and all of these other words out there in research. And interestingly, if you're a bit of a geek like me, and there's many articles out there, what women are actually less good at is the self-promotion element of confidence. We're not good about saying how good we are. Now, I was actually talking to Sue and Kate earlier about one of the research studies where even when women knew that they were comparable on a competence level to men, they will still underplay how good they are. And so that's one of the things that we need to think about. So in terms of bringing it to life for you, close your eyes and really think about one person or two people, however many. Now, it can be in your family, it can be in your friend circle, it can be at work. But think of one female that you really know exudes confidence, you know who they are, and you really admire them. Think about that one person. Then I want you to start to think about being with them. What impact do they have on you, and how do they make you feel? When you've got that person really clear in your head, and when you think about them and everything that they exude, what words do you want to start thinking that describe them? What jumps straight into your mind? When you can think about all those words, I want you to share with us in chat. So take the chat and give us some of those words. What is it that that person exudes? And we'll read at the things that come to him. Passionate, energized, energy, positivity, charismatic, capable, warm, authentic, comfortable, positive power, articulate, optimism, inclusion, energy, bubbly, empathetic, decisive, a lot of charismatic, a lot of energy, informed, that you can do it, self-assured, calming, organized, quick thinker, grounded, knowledgeable, respectful, solutions focused. Now, as these come up, I want you to start looking at the words that you like the feeling of. So there's organized, respectful, decisive, you know, intimidating. Thank you, Gillian, for writing that. You know, this isn't all wonderful. Some really confident people scare the living daylights out of us. But when you look through all that big list of words, I want you to start noticing what words resonate with you, because there's something really critical in this. In what you see and admire in others is what you are most comfortable with. So for those that think or feel like confident people are intimidating, that will have a direct impact on how confident you feel yourself. And we'll explore this. So thank you. People give encouragement, self-directed, knows her work as valuable. And also I want to say thank you to someone who said, I can't think of anybody at the moment. That is so important in female leadership at the moment. If I can't picture a confident female as a role model, how on earth do I know how I'm going to be that myself? So I think that's just as important in this. So let me go back to sharing my screen. So what does confidence mean? The definition, textbook definition, is the feeling or belief that one can have faith. So hear the word faith, or rely on someone or something. So it's a belief, faith about relying on someone. But when you look a little bit deeper, what's interesting is good old Wikipedia tells us that confidence comes from the word Latin fidere, which means to trust. So when you look at some of those words about the energy, they're energizing me, all that came through in the chat, you start to link these to trust. And this is where we're going to spend our focus today. There is a trust equation. So when you think of people that you trust, it goes like this. And I'm going to give you an analogy like a GP. So I go to my GP and I trust them because above the door, it's got all of their letters and their names. So I know that they've got credibility. They're a GP in a surgery and I can see that they've done this before. So that builds credibility. Then the doctor says to me, right, I followed up on the test results that you've had and here are the results. So now I've built trust even more because they're reliable. They did what they said they were going to do. And then they say, don't worry at all. This is something we're seeing an awful lot at the moment. And, you know, they bring a little bit of themselves into the communication. So I feel really like I trust this person now. However, this doctor then turns around to me and says, by the way, I'm doing a project on this. Can I send your details or can I put your details and your test results into my thesis? My head says the only reason you've been nice to me at the top is because this was for you and you've destroyed all trust. So when you start thinking about those people that have confidence, there is an inner trust in them. And it's one of those things that you build up, or all of them, that builds that trust. So if you think about someone that you don't trust or you have less confidence in, it'll be one of those things that they've done that slightly eroded that trust for them. Maybe they keep saying they're going to do something and they haven't. Maybe, especially I get this an awful lot in the work environment, they're like a robot and they only ever talk about work and they never bring that human bit of themselves. So there's just something a bit like I can't attach to it. I can't quite trust them. I've got that little less confidence in them because they're not being human. And so this is what we're going to be talking about. So when you think about how confident you are in someone else, it is supported by this level of trust. So now let's turn that inwards. Okay. The definition of self-confidence is the feeling of trust in one's own abilities, qualities, judgment. And again, exactly the same, still based on trust, but it's self-trust. So self-confidence is having trust in oneself. How much do we trust ourselves? And when you think of it like this, 100% of confidence exists in your mind. So on one hand, self-confidence is having all of that trust in ourselves, that we've got the credibility, the reliability. Whereas the self-doubt comes from questioning all of that in our own mind. Because as we all know, if you ask other people about what they see as confidence in you, quite often they'll give you a much more elevated view of them that you see in yourself. And actually, Emily's just put that as well. So if I am self-promoting, does that increase the trust in others that others have in me? So does self-promotion elevate others' perception that you have self-interest? And so this is, I'm going to come on to this. This is our wonderful inner voice saying that to self-promote is attached to arrogance, you know, over-promising, over-delivering, hello inner critic, hello imposter syndrome. So no, it's not. If self-promotion is based on fact and the credibility side, there is no argument, there is no self-interest in there. But we'll continue to explore that. So thank you, Emily. So if you think about this as a choice, am I choosing to really connect with myself and know that I trust myself? Or am I in that self-doubt place where I'm letting every slight kink and chink and question affect how confident I'm feeling? So this is what we are in charge of. Okay. It looks like this for us: self-confidence as opposed to trust. Have I got the credibility, the experience, the expertise and skills to do this? Can I do it? Am I reliable? And human becomes the values. Am I living myself? Am I really being myself and living everything that I truly believe in doing this? So if I have the credibility, I trust myself to be reliable, and I'm being myself, that is the growth in confidence. However, this inner narrative, your saboteur, that's going, are you sure other people can do this? Maybe wait another year. It's not quite the right time. That plays down everything that you build up at the top. And it's constant, and we all have them. So one of the things about this is really trying to work out where we sabotage ourselves the most. Is it that actually, because I've maybe been doing this an awful long time, I've got the credibility, so that piece is fine, I'm okay with that? Is it the reliability? If you heard the phrase, and I'll come on to this, the eat the elephant, start the morning with doing the thing that you want to do right now. Actually, our reliability saboteur is the one that's saying, just finish off this first, just say that to that, just end of the day comes, you haven't done what you expected to do, and therefore you're questioning your own reliability. Can I do this? And then the human, if you know of your values or not, and it's a brilliant activity to do. Give you another example. If I'm in a work situation and someone is being less honest than I would hold dear, or having less integrity, and I'm needing to do that, I will feel incredibly uncertain about this because it's not aligning with my values. So if the world around you is challenging your values, it will also challenge your trust in yourself because it's not really what you want to be doing. And as a slight aside, I changed careers about 6 years ago now. So I used to be an accountant in the corporate world, and I worked for someone who questioned the very values that were my beliefs. And what started to happen is I first of all started to change to fit in. So I was moving further and further away from my values. So of course my confidence got lower and lower and lower and lower because I just wasn't doing what I wanted to be doing. And so instead of changing, you just drop your confidence. And an awful lot of executive women that I work with have hit rock bottom at the point when they go, now this is no longer okay. I've got no confidence left. So you have to build up the credibility, reliability and values again to re-establish the confidence in what you want to be doing. And that's ever so frequent that I see it going on all the time. So that's a really lovely formula for you to start thinking about. But what I want you to do, I'm going to go into a breakout, jumping around. You're going to go into a group of 4 or 5 people, and Kate's going to help me split you into groups. And I want you to think about that equation, so I can put it back up if you want to take a photo of it. 9 times out of 10, there's probably one area that is your biggest weakness, the thing that gets you every time. So thinking about whether it is my credibility, whether it's the reliability, the human element, or the saboteur, what impacts your confidence most? And so what I want you to do is introduce yourself to each other if you don't know. We're going to have about 15 minutes to do this, and then try and get everybody to just discuss that. Which bit of the equation am I most likely to challenge myself on? Credibility, don't have the experience, expertise, shouldn't be here. Reliability, I've never quite get done what I want to get done. Human, I'm not being who I want to be. Well, that saboteur of really the self-doubt, the questioning, arrogance sits in there. So have a think about that. And then we're just going to share some of the themes from the groups afterwards. So Kate, if you're ready, give yourselves an introduction and start discussing. Stick that back up for you. Thanks, Sue. And so hopefully you had great conversations, and hopefully you found great comfort in the fact that you were not alone, that someone else, hopefully in your group, said something very similar to you. So if you want to, just start adding into the chat, or do feel free to take yourself off mute and just say, what surprised you about that conversation? So the sorts of questions I hope you discussed were, actually, there was one thing that is going to derail me out of that equation, or actually it was all of them. Or did you share something in common about, having heard that equation, which bits, are going to knock you over? So tell us what you discussed. Who's got the confidence to take yourself off mute? Hey, Beth.
Hi, Chloe. Nice to see you again. We talked around share a specific example, or my example at the moment, which would be if I'd rated myself on your poll, I would be up at 7 or 8 in my current role, but I've just resigned from my position and going to set up my own business. So that has put my confidence, yeah, Jess, might be news, Jess, I guess, for Jess there from Scottish Student Sport. So confidence has gone quite low again. So this, I need to spend some time in the credibility sphere, and obviously the saboteur is knocking on the door at every moment when I think, even this morning I was like, oh yeah, I could stay a bit longer, yeah, I could work an extra month of notice, yeah, no problem. Because then I don't need to be big and brave and go out into the world on my own.
Brilliant. Beth, that's so important for any of you that start something new, whether it's a new job, whether it's resigning, whether, you know, it's a new part of your life. Two things happen. Your saboteur gets the loudest because it's trying to protect you. Are you sure? You know, should you wait a bit? Should you do a bit more? You know, what about the money? All of those wonderful things that keep us safe start rearing start rearing their heads. But interestingly, there is your new favorite word will be yet. When you're talking about credibility and starting something new, I don't know it yet. Part of our journey, you know, most of our life, if you think about all of the changes and things we undertake, we're out of our comfort zone an awful lot of the time. So all of it is done so that we can collect more expertise and experience. And so actually, I don't know it yet. Excuse me. That's what you're setting out to do. You're setting out to collect more stuff. So that can be a new word to attach the credibility side. Saboteurs are coming up. I can see a lot in the chat. Who wants to share a bit about, lots of nodding, about what you discussed about saboteurs?
I'll jump in if no one else is.
Go for it, Jem.
So basically we talked about how you're like, is it a reality or is it a perception that like we sabotage ourselves, thinking that maybe, particularly in the sports industry, that men have a lot more to say and that men have more right to say it. And we were trying to weigh up, actually, we think that it probably is a perception, but because so many females in the industry believe it, then now it's actually become the reality. And we kind of tried to like flip it on its head. And like I was saying, so in my job, there's only the two directors and me, and they're both males. And actually the reason that they wanted to employ me is because they said they wanted a female's input in sport. So a lot of the athletes, so I'm an agent, and a lot of the athletes we deal with are females. And they said, actually, it's really important for us to understand what females go through in the industry, and even things to do with like menstruating and stuff and all that. Like they were like, actually, you've got to kind of use your strengths as a woman and like be able to help those, like that stuff that obviously men can't do. So instead of like putting ourselves down, actually we should probably flip it and say, actually, we can offer a side of things that maybe the men in the jobs can't.
Absolutely bang on. And I don't know who else supports that. I think an awful lot of women that I coach are trying to be more male-like, or definitely there's that sort of undertone of, oh, if I'm going to make it, I need to be more aggressive or more. Absolute rubbish. The human part of that equation is that you bring you have a distinct strength that no one else has. And actually, that is what you need to step into and say, I don't need to be like you, and I don't need to copy you, and I don't need to behave like you. I have all of this to bring. And it's actually bringing awareness about what that is that I do bring. Again, builds the confidence. So interestingly, the humility is linked also to the credibility and the reliability. You know, actually, if I take credibility from what my strengths are, I have something different for you, and that's just as important. So yeah, really brilliant. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I'd love to add if possible. It's actually, I love what Jem said there, because I think we discussed kind of the opposite problem. I have an example where I work in a very, very male-dominated sport of golf. And I think sometimes it is perhaps a mix of credibility and saboteur, where when I share my experiences and perhaps challenge the sexism that exists in the sport, there's often an element of being like defensive. The men who I'm speaking to are defensive, or they deny that it exists. And in the process, I then perhaps the impact of my message is lessened because I don't have confidence in what I'm saying, because my experience is almost being, you know, denied and disbelieved, I suppose.
I think, yeah, again, it's brilliant. A lot of this erosion comes from the outside sort of tapping. So that whole, I believe I've got the credibility, and then someone questions it, and then that leads me to question myself. One of the sort of languages that you can use when you're talking about, you know, when you are putting that sort of conflict, if you like, in front of people, is to hold it purely as, this is my perception, because actually no one can disagree with your perception. And that is fact, and it is real, and it is yours. Sometimes when we're trying to put facts out, facts can get argued, and then it gets taken away from you. But actually, your perception as a woman is this, and that is credible and reliable, and all the rest of it. So I think there's something in the confidence of, I have a differing view for a very good reason, and that needs to be listened to. And don't get me wrong, I sit here on this side of the computer saying all of this, you know, not having to do it. So I totally appreciate it. But interestingly, just on the chat, Jazzy, you've got people in the table tennis world. So Jenny's saying exactly the same. I think, I mean, I'm going to quickly deviate. It's called cognitive diversity. If you want a really good book, there's Rebel Ideas by Matthew Syed, who talks about the power of bringing that different perspective. If these, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant now, so forgive me, but if all the middle class, middle-aged white male keep supporting themselves with people like them, they keep validating the same opinions and validating the same outcomes. And actually it needs a different perspective that offers a different view to broaden the options ahead of everybody. And that's what we're seeking. So just quote cognitive diversity if you need to. Any others? Someone talked about procrastination, which is another really interesting one. Procrastination, interestingly, isn't a saboteur. Procrastination is about, when we talk about you being you, so bringing your credibility, your reliability, you as a human to the table, you still have to know where you're headed. Okay, why am I doing this? What's my sort of purpose? Actually, it's a bit like the Alice in Wonderland comment. You know, she goes up to the Cheshire Cat and asks whether she should go left or right. And the Cheshire Cat says, where are you trying to get to? And she says, I don't know. And he says, well, it doesn't matter then. Procrastination tends to exist when we're not sure whether to go left or right. So we just don't do either. So part of your development, your, learning about you is, what's my end goal? And then it's far easier to head there than it is to just feel like I need to do something, but I don't particularly know in which direction. So that every bump that hits you in the road, you then go, well, I could go left or I could go right, and I don't know which to do it. You need some sort of pull. So that's a sort of response to procrastination. Anything also, Jolie's put a brilliant response as well in curiosity, favorite word ever. Stay curious as about to the situations, what's interesting, examples. Perfect. We need to celebrate our differences. You're absolutely right. So let's go back to the screen. So thinking about your discussion about which of those elements in the equation that you struggle with or are most likely going to, derail you. What I also want you to think about is this is our trust in our own abilities, okay? And we can choose which narrative to use. I can choose to listen to that saboteur and stay in my box, to stay small, if you like. And I think that is actually, ironically, the easiest and most comfortable space. A lot of people I talk about, and someone just said this about celebrating success, it's easier to listen to the you can't do it than it is to do the right, I'm going to face this and do it. And actually, again, that's totally normal. So there's something about the why am I doing it? The why sits across all of this. So why do I want to be myself? How reliable do I want to be seen? What credibility do I need to get me to that end goal? Gone back a bit, hold on a sec. So what I now want you to think about is, where in your life do you have self-confidence? Because all of you will be confident at something. Might be nothing to do with work, might be work. Think about those examples of where actually I'm confident. I don't even think twice about doing it, I just do it. So share with us in chat some of the things about, yeah, Beth, brilliant, on a hockey pitch. No saboteurs, presumably, no, or should you, shouldn't you? Around your friends and family. I love that, and I'm not surprised in the slightest. Sport, playing sport when I'm with animals as a mum, I love that. In the gym. So if you think about these examples, swimming, when I'm with friends, when I'm in the gym, when I'm leading running groups, when I'm busy at work, that's sort of like in that flow, when I'm doing what I want to do, coaching. Again, take yourself to that place. This is your entire narrative about what's possible. So if I can lead running groups, if I can be an awesome mum, when I'm dealing with a topic that I mastered fully, Sam, that's a perfectionist saboteur going, you need to be, don't say anything until you know it fully. Supporting friends, sport, being active, friendship at home, playing sport, coaching. When I'm surrounded by authenticity, I love these, authenticity and diverse thinking. So listen, we're now trying to create your blueprint. Because you know you have confidence somewhere, you need to start copying those behaviors. So when you think about your blueprint, so take yourself to one of those places, being a mum or surrounded by the diverse thinking, or when you're swimming. What is it about credibility, reliability, who you're being, and why you're doing it that brings you the confidence? The answers to those questions, so the competence, or the capability, when capability and credibility, one of those things about when we do something that we love, we don't really feel like we need to be the expert at it. And what I mean by that is, I play tennis, not very well, but I love it. When I talk about writing things down, so if Sue had said to me, oh, can you do an article on confidence? I would have said, absolutely not, because my confidence isn't there. I have made my life out of talking. I'm not brilliant at writing. So I'm filling my head with all the reasons why I'm not going to do this. When I'm playing tennis, I don't care that I'm not brilliant at it. I just do it. But when I think about writing, I have an inbuilt, it must be perfect for me to do it. So if I can copy my feeling about tennis, which is I'll give it a go and I'll improve, to my writing, I've got my credibility blueprint. I give myself permission to have a go at it. So when you think about all of those things that you are brilliant at and you have real confidence in it, what is it or who is it that you're being? And it's only by asking yourself those questions that it helps you understand what I'm afraid of, or the saboteur, when I try something that is unfamiliar to me, or where the place is that I lose confidence. And when I think about losing confidence or lower confidence, it's always in places like public speaking, speaking up in meetings. It's when we are needing to be sort of a bigger version of ourselves. So what we're trying to do with all of this is build credibility, reliability, and being human. The more we know about ourselves, our strengths, how reliable we are, and where we hold credibility, the less our saboteur will be vocal. Okay, what we tend to do is get into an argument with our saboteur and spend our time justifying why we're doing it. So we're always below the line. We're always saying, well, I could have a go at it, or I'll do it just slightly less big than I thought I was going to do. You know, Beth, you didn't say about resigning. Oh, I'll resign next month, or I'll resign next year. I'll give myself. We're constantly in discussion with our saboteur. And so what this is all about is focus on the top of the line. And here's how. Right at the beginning, we said this isn't an inherent flaw and you can learn and practice, but you have to practice. So think about credibility. How many of you have actually collected the facts of what you've already achieved in your life? We tend to do it, CV writing, when we go for interviews, and that's about it. You should have a notebook of the daily reminders of what you have already achieved. That 1 page, a 2 page, how many of the things. When I did that project where I was totally out of my comfort zone, when I took on that thing, when I changed career, whatever it is, big or small, you actually need to list it, because that is your evidence of your credibility. And as you see in here, add the word yet to the things that you want to put on that list, that you're not quite there yet, but I'm learning it. And credibility comes with learning, right? I'm going to take this on, it might not go smoothly, but I'll learn it and it will become part of my credibility. So that's the factual piece, right? Where do you encapsulate all of that stuff that you're already awesome at? Reliability. What does reliability look like to you? Where in your life do you want to be reliable? So do you want to be a reliable, partner, employee? What is reliability? But then there's this sort of prioritizing piece. For me to be as brilliant as I want to do, I have to say no to things. I have to say no to things. Women are brilliant at what's called over-rowing the boat. They take on just a bit more and keep going and keep going and keep going. And again, I want to, if this was your area of the equation that you needed to work on, first thing is, what am I saying no to? Quite often with a good old reliable person that I can give something to and it'll get done, and we pride ourselves on that. But like I say, we're just over-rowing our boat. So think about what reliability means to you. Think about where you're no longer going to be reliable anymore. but it's for your own self-confidence to not let all of that stuff get in the way, but to prioritize what you want to do and to get that done properly. And then you think about this human. For those of you who have identified their values or your strengths, there's many. I'm going to give you a couple of hints and tips after this about where you can do this. If I know I'm living my values, life is so much more easy because I'm not battling with should I, shouldn't I. So for me, I'll give you an example. Loyalty is a big value, but also I have to keep it in check that I'm not too loyal and over reliable for everybody else so that I don't get to do it. Okay, so think about when am I at my best, when I'm in flow. So one of the people put in chat about, you know, when I'm at work, I have confidence. When I'm sort of head down and doing stuff, when I'm being awesome, what does that look like and how can I replicate it more? So you should know what your unique strengths are. Your female voice, it builds on credibility and reliability, but everything you're about, because that's what you step into. And then the very last one, which I almost don't want you to spend any time on, is the saboteur. If you get clear on your own motivation, the why you're doing this, and decide to choose to listen to your confident voice as opposed to the saboteur, what you need to start doing is asking your saboteur voice to leave. Okay, so there's something about that nick voice in the back of your head. I work with all sorts of clients who have wonderful personas for their saboteurs. Mine is Dobby the house elf from Harry Potter, that little niggly there to trip me up, pretending to keep me safe, but really isn't. You have to learn to ask them to leave rather than get into a conversation with them. If you are constantly in a conversation with that negative voice, you are not building your credibility, reliability, and who you are. Okay, so let me just quickly check in on chat as well. Yep, we're talking about giving this. That's a really brilliant point Beth's actually raised as well. It's our sort of responsibility as well to show the credibility and reliability in others. So when you say to someone, that was a really good job, or when you did that, that was really good, you're building up their confidence. What we are really bad at doing is batting that away. We have to let that settle. So when someone says to you, you've done something really well, or they offer you any sort of feedback, positive feedback, keep it and own it. Add it to your credibility and reliability book. We're brilliant at going, oh no, well the team helped me with that, or oh, yeah, oh I know, I was just lucky. And also because we're brushing all of that off, it doesn't resonate. It doesn't sit in that above the line trust. It just disappears. So we need to really learn to say, thank you. Yeah, I worked hard. Or thank you, that was important. Brilliant. Claire, another lovely one. When you talk about this to other people, about what you do and how proud you are, you know, it's all about as well, you know, none of our journeys have been easy. So alerting other people to the fact that there have been wiggly lines along the way gives people permission to realize that, you know, trying stuff and setting out a new path has its pitfalls and its bumps. So when you articulate it to someone else, you hear how well you've done. Brilliant. So any questions on that? Please feel free to take yourself off mute. Any thoughts on how good we are at building our own credibility and reliability and being human? And be honest, how many of you are constantly in a discussion with the saboteur as opposed to focusing on above the line? So what are your thoughts? Anyone? Excuse me. Yeah, always in conversation with saboteurs.
Chloe, can I come off chat just for a minute?
Of course.
Mute, sorry. So as a little bit of context, I was on Chloe's imposter syndrome webinar about a year ago, probably a bit longer. And from that then kind of have gone through a bit of a journey with Chloe, and we did some work together and she did some coaching with me. And that bit around the saboteur, from that point in terms of actually identifying him and kind of even building this, he's in a room and he's got a little throne because he's got to be comfortable, but he's got other people in that room that keep him quiet. And it was such a big journey for me, and that saboteur now, every now and again we have a chat, but generally he just sort of sits back and watches. And I guess it depends sort of how you work kind of neurologically and how you perceive life and how that works for you, but being able to identify him, and like, you say that yours is Dobby and mine is this, yeah, it's a really strange picture. I'm not going to describe it too much because it's weird. To other people it might be, but to me it makes sense. But I think that bit around, like you say, not constantly having that conversation. If there's somebody in your life that doesn't agree with something with you, at some point you have to stop having that conversation, because that energy that you give to that person, realistically, we all want that energy to go into positive things and to building things, as opposed to trying to stop chipping away at something. And I think that point is really important about actually sort of being able to reflect back and go, how often am I having that conversation? And actually, who else? Kind of going back to the other bits that some of you people are saying as well, that where you give, you're kind of bringing other women along with you on that journey, or actually even pushing them further beyond you, or bringing them along, whatever that looks like. It's that bit as well in terms of listening. We're not very good at listening to that, and sometimes you have to give that compliment 5, 6, 7 times and almost get them to, at some point repeat it back to you, so that they own it and it's not just come from somebody else. But yeah, I wanted to kind of emphasize that point about acknowledging and being able to be kind of self-aware of how often you're having that conversation with that saboteur, and if it's more often than not, start giving them a little kick every now and again, or bring some other people into the room, like you were saying about kind of those people that you kind of see as being confident. I kind of had Cher in that room, because who is more badass than Cher, in all honesty? But other people in that room that are going, she can do this, of course she can do this. So sometimes you almost let those other kind of superheroes in your head go and conquer that saboteur. I always found that to be quite useful.
Brilliant, thank you. As always. We had some fantastic conversations, and quite random ones, Sarah and I. So thank you for sharing. There is something critical in what you've just said, which is about, it is just a persona in terms of something that is here to keep you safe, but actually metaphorically keeps you small and in that box. You have to make the decision to go, right, I'm not going to listen to that, and I'm going to go and do all this other stuff, by acknowledging that they're here to keep you safe, but actually there's more for you to do, and there's more for you to get out of this, and that's what's so important. And actually, yeah, Jennifer's just written a brilliant thing about imposter syndrome. I mean, I've talked about imposter syndrome before, and that's slightly deeper and sits very much in the credibility. I don't deserve to be here, and others never see what goes on inside you. It's very much, again, what's inside you as opposed to what's possible. So think about that conversation you're having with yourself. Where are you investing your energy? And again, above and below the line, are you investing it in understanding who you are, what your strengths are, what you bring to the table, or are you investing it in having a discussion with something that's trying to keep you safe? Don't doubt your judgment. Yes, thanks, Jennifer. Any other questions before we move on? Let me just quickly read. Yes. Laura's mentioned the high 5 habits, great way concept to kickstart your day. There's loads. Morning miracles. My development research in this over time has really shown me, the crazy Americans who do all their affirmations, and they have the preachy guy at the front that speaks to thousands of people. Actually, they get it far more than we do, which is we do have to actually speak out loud and verbalize how good we are. That's what actually connects the neural pathways. So sitting on our own, sometimes thinking about it, writing is even better. Speaking is that next level, because you've had to articulate it. So there's something about how we talk about what we are good at. Hence, if we tell someone else the story, we hear ourselves going, that actually sounds quite good. When I've done what I've done. If I'm just sitting here thinking about it, it's just me in my head. I'm not actually making that connection. British cynics. Yeah, perfect. So Julie, this feeling comes and goes. So our confidence isn't a constant. It is this, some days you have that great conversation, you're living your values, you get something done and it's all brilliant. And the next day something happens and it all just implodes again. And this cycle is about, again, if you know where you're headed and what you're doing, it's part of your journey. If we're unsure where we're headed and what we're doing, the pitfalls become derailers and that procrastination, because it sort of makes us think, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? And the second we start questioning ourselves about what we're doing, we're in saboteur land and we're forgetting about our achievements, our credibility. We're just having a conversation with what's not happening. So it's important to know where you're going and why you're doing it on those low days, to keep going, right, I'm just having an off day, but I'm still headed in that direction. If we don't know the direction, then we're just tumbling. Brilliant. Last couple of messages. Yeah, not analysis for paralysis. Don't overthink. On a good day, if you make your plan, you've always got that plan. What we tend to do when we're struggling, it's on the days that we don't know what we're doing, is when we try to justify it all. And ironically, that's the whole thing you don't want to be doing. When you're in that turmoil and you haven't got any direction and you're not sure what you're doing and your confidence is low, that's not the time to be thinking about making my plan. So actually it's on the good days, actually I'm living my values, I know what my strengths are, I know where I'm headed. That's when you want to create your vision, your purpose. Then when you get to the unconfident days, you can just, like I say, it's a bump in the road, don't overthink it, keep going tomorrow. Okay, so things that you need to do, or actually before that, what I want you to do, and this is where this human connection piece comes in as well. You need to commit to practicing something to someone else. I could get you all to write on your post-it notes in front of your pads of paper to commit to do something in one of those formulas. You might, but you might not, and there's no accountability. So if you think about the score that you gave at the start, whatever that was, I want you to think about it 2 points ahead. So if you put a 5, I want you to think about being a 7. If you put a 8, I want you to think about being a 10. And I want you to think about that credibility, reliability, and human bit only. What is the one thing that you're going to take away and do or practice to help build that confidence in one of those areas? Now, the whole connecting with someone, I either want you to put it in a chat to someone maybe you know on here, or just put it into chat generally. That whole I've said out loud, effectively, and write it down, what it is that you are going to practice to build your confidence. And let's put a time frame on it in the next 2 weeks. Liz has gone off to an interview, which is awesome. Right, brilliant. And Beth, who are you going to practice your elevator pitch to? Perfect. Just as well, to put that into context, I'm guessing that's going to have an impact on your credibility and probably your reliability as well, but either or. Brilliant. Emily's I'm going to read them all out so that you have to see. I'm now being the voice, your voice. List of accomplishments to sit on my desk. I want you to celebrate it every day. Look at what I can achieve. Journal my achievements. Journaling is another brilliant antidote to saboteurs. Always do positive journaling. What's possible, what you've achieved, what you're grateful for. Heather is going to revisit your values. Great that you've got them and how you bring them to work. Yes. Learning to talk about what my values, strengths and experiences are in a public environment, you know, as in at work or, you know, with your fellow peers. What is it that I do and bring to the table and why I'm different? Starting a notebook. I'm a great stationery advocate, notebooks and coloured pens and pretty pictures. Successes and positive feedback. Collect the positive feedback, even if it's the smallest thing someone has said to you walking by. Collect it, keep it. That is part of who you are and what makes you great. Claire, a lovely one. Getting more external feedback rather than relying on my own. When we talked earlier, someone mentioned about the you know, feeling maybe too arrogant or speaking up. That whole sort of how am I going to be perceived? We are valuing ourselves on others' feedback. Okay, so when I say about collecting external feedback, rather than our own judgment of ourselves, you are getting to witness how you are viewed, and that is essential in your strengths and who you are at your best. The two things about feedback is get it from someone that you admire and trust, because then you hold on to it sort of stronger. And feedback can be both obviously good and bad. Get the good and the bad, because the bad helps you learn and build your credibility, and the good helps your reliability and your human piece. Collecting the facts of my achievement so far, I like that. There's more to come. 3 affirmations, always brilliant. Make sure the 3 affirmations are supportive of where you have no confidence. I'm going to get my friends to discuss their accomplishments. How often do we say to people, and actually I have to say, Sue, you're brilliant at doing this, but you know, how can I help you? So when you speak to people, sometimes we don't even know what they do, so that we can't talk about what they do and how great they are, because we just don't know. So some of this is also about saying, actually learning to practice what I do and how I do it, so that other people can also pass you on, and that helps your credibility, etc. Practice remembering, Evelyn, that you do have strong experience in your area. Practice believing it and remembering it. Write down positive feedback. Start a folder of positive feedback. You know, I'm guessing, massive judgment here, quite often feedback and any sort of asking people how we're doing is linked to PDRs and processes of reviews, which tend to be once a year. This should be a much, much more frequent thing. Go, Alice. It's going to write a business case for my promotion at work. Absolutely. Don't keep things under the radar. If no one knows, they can't celebrate you. Leadership philosophy, success notebook, brilliant. Now, who's written this? Gina. One of the things that I'm guessing that you're all, again, making massive judgment, the time we give ourselves for these sorts of thoughts. Actually, we're so busy on our to-do lists that time for us is always the thing that slips. Our intentions start at the beginning of the week. They're going to spend an hour reading that article or doing that thing, and we don't. And actually, I'm hoping even out of this session that this time to think about what is it I want? Where am I sabotaging myself? Where am I headed? We need to keep that fresh so that we're on that journey. It's a bit like climbing a mountain. You know, halfway up the mountain, it's like putting the map away and we're just winging it. So actually, until you give yourself time to keep reminding yourself why I'm doing this and that I do have these achievements and I want to do this, keeps it fresh and keeps it something we do. So time or pauses throughout the day is brilliant. Key values have come up. Feel Good Friday with your team. Always celebrate what went well. I think everybody needs to hear it. Pause more. Trust self. I do my values. So I'm going to give you, Sarah, a tip on how there's a book that's good to do your own values. There's loads coming through and I absolutely love it. Has anyone got any questions before we go on to just the last slide?
Danielle has an interesting question, Chloe.
Thank you. Right, let me find Danielle. Is there a balance? Yes, brilliant question. So Danielle asks, is there a balance on how much we rely on external feedback? It is absolutely a balance. If you look at sort of confidence as a, from a research point of view, there is a stronger relationship with confidence in ourselves being a driver of sort of performance rather than others' confidence in you. So it is nice to get the feedback from others because it helps validate our credibility, but you have to believe it too. So there's no point in collecting all this feedback where everyone tells you that you're great and you're doing a great job and you're brilliant if you don't believe it. So you're absolutely right. You have to believe what is being said and you have to feel that confidence, excuse me, and as well as having it validated by other people. If you rely on just the validation and you don't believe it, it's fairly empty. And I'll give you a little aside on this. When I do this trust equation with the sort of the corporate world, one of the examples I use is Trump, President Trump. So he exudes confidence, right? He is the most confident man you know. Do you trust him? No. But because if you think of his view of his confidence, he will tell you he's credible, he's reliable, he's the most human person he's about, and he has no saboteurs. So because he feels so confident, that's what everybody witnesses. but everybody else also witnesses the lack of trust. So that's a really good way of thinking about, I have to trust myself, but I have to get it validated by others. Otherwise that confidence is absolutely pointless. Obviously it'll work on some people who share similar values, but in the main, there's so much proof and evidence that he's not reliable and not credible, etc., that it breaks down the confidence that we have in him. So that's quite a nice way of looking at it. Let me just... So I love this, perfectionism.
And I missed the I, I'm gutted.
So this is such an interesting point. Actually, let me just stop sharing for the moment. I'm a great advocate of values. When we understand what drives us and what motivates us as individuals, it is like having your very own fingerprint. So someone might have huge amounts of confidence in you, but you'll be beating yourself up over all of these little things that you did or didn't do, you know, and whatever works for you. And that's where the disconnect sits. So your confidence in you is when you are being who you want to be and who you need to be. So if, and I love that, if you've got something like perfectionism tendency, when it isn't good enough, your saboteur will go mental. Oh, you can't do that. That's not going to be right. That's not going to be good enough. What do you think you're doing? You can't. That is when one of our values becomes our saboteur. And what tends to happen is you'll have another value which will balance that out. So I'm going to massively make this up, but if I want to be perfection, but I also have some sort of maybe learning value, I can balance them off where I've got this, I'm learning about this, so therefore I can downgrade the perfection. But that saboteur will be coming from a place where it will be telling you you're letting yourself down on one of your values. Okay, right, and very last slide, just to give you some, and then we can open it up to conversations. Or so hopefully you've all made a commitment to yourself or to someone else. I nearly left the meeting, which would have been fun. Okay, so tips and hints. One of the things that we haven't talked about today is body language. One of the things about being human and feeling comfortable is there's a huge amount of stuff in our body language. I don't know if you've heard of Amy Cuddy. She's a brilliant person about body language may shape who you are. So there's some brilliant videos from her. The Squiggly Career, which is a very popular one about changing career. There's a brilliant chapter in there about how you find your values, and it's got some exercises, and you can go into looking at the highs and lows of your life and what really drives you, and that helps you understand what your values are. And then you can do things like strengths. This is Spotlight, which is done by Mindflick. There's Strengths Finder, where you can just do the sort of 20-30 questions and it gives you what you're strong at. And again, just from a confidence point of view, I talked about when I changed careers, I was at rock bottom. I did one of these profiles and it gave me 5 words back, and I thought, what a load of rubbish. Couldn't associate with any of those 5 words. It's now what I do to a core, and it was because I was not happy in that job doing what I was doing that almost like the report came back telling me what I should do, and I was arguing with it because it didn't have some of the words that I should be having. So finding out what your strengths are helps with that narrative. This is who I am, what I bring. So there's some of the things that you can have a look at. Right, any questions? Yeah, that's right, Beth. Amy Cuddy's known for doing the Superwoman pose. It's about there's something really physical in how you stand, and I love it. When you talk about body language, instantly you can see people sort of sit up and shoulders back, and but it's all quite important. Beth, I'm training Spotlight too. It's one of my very favourite of all of the assessments out there. Spotlight gives you a wonderful view on how you view situations, but also what you do in those situations. There's a mixture of mindset and personality, so it's another really good one. Sue, are there any questions that I've missed on the...
I don't think so. I guess just to say to people that we will share the slides and we'll share your book recommendations and contacts and connections from here too.
Could I ask a question if we've got 2 minutes? Yeah. Is that okay, Sue? And you'll probably understand this. Hi, thank you very much, Chloe. So I've attended one of your sessions before, and I always fight at the beginning, I always think, oh, this is self-indulgent to take this time out, but it's so important. But one of the things I'd like to ask is, as a business, the majority of our work comes through competitive tenders, and this can have a massive effect on confidence and morale. Have you got any tips on, even, when you don't win a tender, all you can think about is, why not? What did we not do right? Is, all you can do is analyze. Is there anything that you've got tips on that?
Absolutely. It works in the same level at businesses as it does at individuals. When you talk about competitive tenders, we are putting ourselves on the line to prove ourselves to someone. And actually, when you don't get it, it's a big fat rejection. And we bundle that all into one thing and take it personally as we're not good enough. What could we do better? And one of the ways to think about it as well is tendering as a process is two-way. And actually, there has to be a fit on all of those levels, interestingly, even with trust that we talked about. So credibility, reliability, and human. There is an element of, I would challenge you in thinking some of these companies that you might have wanted to work with, you wouldn't have wanted to work with because there wasn't a fit. And if we could be that wonderful, you have better clients than others. Some are awesome, some aren't so awesome. So there's something very intentional about two things following a tender. One is very much about what did we learn from this and what would we do differently? So treat it as a learning opportunity to think about, if you could analyze all of the elements of what could have gone wrong, through from personal relationships to details in the tender, to time it took, to etc. And then there's an unknown bit, right? There's a whole heap that you're never going to know when you walk into a pitch. Which of those elements can you do something differently next time? So treat it as learning, but also have an honest conversation about, was that right for us in the first place? And if you can start to identify the was it right, you can also start picking the tendering in terms of only choosing the ones that have a stronger fit. So it's a very similar thing about an individual having a job role as well, in terms of that whole, I'm trying to bash my head against a brick wall to make this career work, when actually I'm in the wrong place. So trying to find out what you stand for and who it is also helps with the tendering process. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I think sometimes there's just no way of putting that voice away, and you put yourself through so much pain when actually it was actually nothing that you did wrong, and sometimes you'll never ever find out what who you're up against, what you're up against. So yeah, it's just learning to shorten that journey, and to say, right, I'm going to allow myself 2 hours of self-sabotage, and then that's it. I've got to move on.
It is, absolutely, because that voice is keeping you in that box. That what to do, holding on to that feeling is keeping you in that sort of saboteur box. So actually focus on the next one. What's possible? What will I do differently? What am I aiming for to keep the conversation going?
I think as well, I would just say that's not just tendering, is it? That's pitching. Having run an agency for 25 years, that's new business pitches, and I'm sure that's interviews, and it relates to so many of those things, isn't it? But they're kind of moving on, and I think that whole not always knowing why it is, and there may not even be a rational reason for it either. There's all kind of, I'm ever positive and think there's another reason that isn't maybe connected to us too. It's that element as well.
Also, by nature of your values, you will love that feeling of pitching. That sort of going in, proving yourself. There will be something ingrained in the enjoyment of that. So every time you get a rejection, it is a clash of your values. It's someone saying that what you stand for is not accepted. So that's, if you then go through your values and work out, actually, I also do it for these reasons. You take the focus off that one sort of response.
Thank you.
No worries. Anything else? I think people are starting to jump off anyway.
Lovely, brilliant. I'm going to wrap up then, if that's okay. I like to finish on time, and I'm really so grateful to you again for you had some lovely feedback there from the chat. I think we've had a couple of these of an hour and a half. I know it is a long time for people to give up their day, but I think that was just so valuable. I know I've taken so much away there, and hopefully people have got connections and that they can follow up with too. And I guess just for us all to have a think about and sit with it for a bit, and hopefully we can build more in the future. But really appreciate you sharing the time with us again, Chloe. It's very kind, and we will send out the the Deca slides and also some of the references too. And please, for all of you that here, do link in on behalf of Chloe, do link into Chloe and connect with her too. And hopefully we'll see you all again soon on calls in the future. But thank you so much, Chloe.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye
You're
all.
all incredible.
Yeah, that's the thing to finish with, isn't it?